the very beginnings of my realization of presence, I went to a school of meditation when I was 26, and I practiced ever since. And one of the complementary exercises to meditation was giving attention, which simply really means listening and looking, being aware of where we are. And as I was a farmer then and worked by hand, I began to realize it's really just being a good workman. In other words, paying attention to what I was doing. My father used to say when he taught me to bang in a nail, well, watch the hammer, watch where it hits the nail, and then you won't hit your finger. And that's absolutely true, isn't it? If you're not paying attention when you bang in a nail, you put it in crooked, or you won't even hit the nail. But if you watch the hammer, then you'll hit the nail. It's just as simple as anything. So, expanding on from that, all these vexed questions about what to do in life, what to say, which used to torment me as a young man, goodness me. I used to be so embarrassed in company, I just never knew what to say. And then I began to discover that if you actually paid attention, then very often, surprise, surprise, words would arise that actually were appropriate and were appreciated. The trouble is, very often we're absent. We don't even look at each other when we're speaking, and so we just say things that are not appropriate. You soon see how other people are bored with you and disinterested or even irritated. But to be attentive is such a great discovery. So, again, throughout my many attempts when I was younger to be of use to the world, and my often failed attempts, as I began to be more present, somehow I began to fit better into the structures where I found myself. And I began to be more confident that actually I was being of some use. And this, of course, developed and developed through many experiences, until now, but I'm absolutely sure that to be present is the most useful thing I can possibly do to a world that's almost entirely absent. And this is really my understanding of what prayer is. The question that's bothered me ever since I was a schoolboy, and I was taught to just say the usual prayers, and I've always asked this question, well, what is prayer? And this is my answer now at the end of my life. It's just to be present. And of course, when you're present, it's not that the ego is present. You know, what's happened to John Butler? I've forgotten about it. It's faded out of the picture, hasn't it? I've sort of merged into this presence, which you begin to realize is the all-merciful, almighty, all everything really, all love, all life. I'm always a bit shy of using the word God, but that's what people refer to. That's how people describe it, isn't it? Of course, it's indescribable. That's why that's its nature. Description is of a lower order. But this indescribable is something that we can know in our hearts, or in our... Again, one really wonders what you mean by these words, but there is a faculty which does recognize it. All of you who've been watching this video to some extent have recognized this, shared it with me. And yet none of us can actually say what it is, can we? We can't actually describe it, yet we all know what it is. It's rather like beauty, isn't it? What is it? Or freedom, what is it? Or even happiness, we can't actually say what it is. The funny thing is that everything we describe, this is the problem. This is why they say that wisdom of man is foolishness to God, because it is. Everything we think we know, we put it into a category which is somehow separate from any other thing. And so we get into all sorts of arguments and debates and problems and differences of opinion and this and that. Whereas in presence, all this melts away. All the complications become so simple. And spontaneously a smile of recognition comes out of one's face, because suddenly you realise this is it. This is what it's all about. It's here. Present. That's what it's all about. When I joined the School of Meditation when I was 26 and attended for over 20 years, I used to go down to London. One of the things they said was, speak from experience. And that's what I try to do. And also I've written my books, and even if you ever read any of my books, you'll see they're written 100% from my own experience. Hardly any quotes from anybody else, from absolute factual experience, always from the here and now, as life unfolded before my eyes. And how could I speak about presence if this wasn't from direct experience? It would carry no conviction, would it? But if it has any reality, you see, it's the reality of actually being realized here and now.